What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another Hasbro Star Wars The Vintage Collection market update. And much like the vintage Kenner market, I can't make heads or tails of what's going on with prices. Some items sell for big money. Some other items sell for way below what I expect them to sell for. So good luck trying to figure out this market and navigating it. And all I can say is it's true for action figures as well as the comic book market. I am personally sticking to auctions only. I'm not doing any buy it nows if I can help it. Every time I do a buy it now and I think I'm getting a good deal, a month later it shows up and I'm like, well, I could have saved myself 50 bucks or 70 bucks or whatever the number is. So be careful out there and just be patient, because all of this stuff for the most part is not very rare and you can find it pretty easily. And patience is the key in kind of a weird market like we're in right now. Let's dig into some vintage collection sales. And, well, just speaking of the devil, when it comes to items that sell for big money, we talked about I think it was an uncirculated, or it might have been a circulated 9.0 unpunched Magnaguard that sold in the last episode for $14.50, I believe. I mean, it was a crazy number, a really high number. Well, here's another one. So I think that sellers are starting to realize, wow, I've got an unpunched Magnaguard as well, and now's a pretty good time to sell it. So this seller listed this unpunched example for $8.50, and it sold very quickly, free shipping. So just yet another data point for the Magnaguard that continues to go up in price. We saw another one that was unpunched that sold maybe a month or two ago in the $4.50 range, and this is almost double that price. Double that price. And obviously this is not as expensive as the AFA graded example that sold in the last episode, but wow, I mean, that is an incredible jump in the Magnaguard. Next up, we had an AFA 90 VC20 Yoda. This is not the Canadian, just the standard US card release, unpunched. That one sold for $296. So again, you know, is it high grade? Yes. And ungraded, what do these go for? I'd say $125 to $150 pretty easily. I found a couple of data points at $175 for unpunched VC20s ungraded. So AFA 90, is it worth $300? I don't know, but apparently the market says so, because this was not a buy it now. This was an auction. $296, 29 bids, plus $10.85 shipping. So that's over $300 for an AFA 90. Three-tier grading as well. So if there's ever proof that three-tier grading is viewed as pretty important to collectors, this is it. So, you know, obviously the modern scale goes from 1 to 10, 1.0 to 10.0. But I feel like the vintage collection grading, the modern grading with the three-tier sub-scores do command a significant premium. And this was a good example of that. Next up is an unpunched Super Battle Droid. Pretty nice looking example, and this one seems to be kind of holding steady. VC37 unpunched US card. This one is a beautiful card. I love the way this one looks inside the package. It's just a great looking figure and package, and I found a couple of data points that were all right around this $135 number. Free shipping on this one, and I've seen as low as $110 for an unpunched example versus you know, $150 on the upper end. So right in the middle there, and it did look very clean. You know, you can see some close-ups there. What a great looking figure. I love that figure. I do feel like I have a new appreciation for the prequel trilogy, and I know that's not really a breaking news. I mean, I think that a lot of us feel that way after the sequel trilogy and kind of some of the weird choices that were made for those films. And, you know, going back through and watching the prequel trilogy, yes, there's a lot of really bad dialogue. But I personally am really happy that Hayden Christensen is kind of re-embraced by the Star Wars community, because he was only as good as the lines he was fed, right? So this was a beautiful example, though, and I've been enjoying going back through and watching the prequel trilogy, because yes, there's some cringy dialogue, but I do feel like it's aged a lot better than the early years after those films were released. I got a number of different Boba Fetts that sold. First is the Foil Ultimate Galactic Hunt with the rocket firing offer. That's a beautiful card back. I love the way that one looks. That one sold for $150, free shipping. I thought that was a great price on that one. Looked really clean. Next up is the Revenge of the Jedi retail release with the prototype armor Fett. More on him in a little while. This was a punched example. Pretty good condition overall. That one, the seller had 3 available. One of them has sold for $157 free shipping. Apparently, he still has 2 available. And in this case, I always recommend that you ask the seller for detailed photos of the exact item that you're buying, because you don't want to have photos of the item that you're not getting and then you get it in hand and all of a sudden it's a lot more beat up than the photos. So anytime they have more than one available, always ask for more photos of the exact item that you're going to be shipped. Next up is the rocket firing FET that I just mentioned. This is a CAS 90. It was not uncirculated, but high grade 90-90-95. Unpunched, and that one sold over in the UK for 108 pounds, which is $135. Plus shipping. Now, admittedly, if you bought this in the US, you got to pay an extra $36 shipping, but still, you're talking $170 for a CAS 90 rocket firing unpunched FET. I mean, remember during the book of Boba Fett last year and what this was going for? We were seeing this go for $250 to $300 ungraded. I remember $450 to $500 for an uncirculated 9.0 by AFA. So this has really come down in price, which is crazy to me, but because to me, that's a pretty iconic card back. It's certainly a lot more affordable and budget friendly than trying to get like a 21 back Kenner example that'll set you back $10,000 plus, more like $20,000 in high grade. Next up is the prototype armor FET mail away. This included the redemption certificate, and it was only graded AFA 8.0, but kind of a cool, unique case. I personally didn't know that AFA will even do this, where they'll display it, this kind of certificate next to the actual item. And that one sold for $183. To me, for an 8.0, I personally would much rather spend $175 to $200 on a higher grade than get a custom case like this and only get an 8.0. But it is kind of cool to see the redemption certificate. I just wish it had been higher grade. I personally would not have paid $183 plus $15 shipping. I mean, that's approaching $200. And I think the argument can be made in the current environment that you can get this item in higher grade for less or the same amount of money. And speaking of which, here's one. And so maybe I'm wrong, but this was an uncirculated 90. So 3-tier grading on this one and unpunched. And that one sold for $250 in an auction. So $250 on 43 bids. That's up. That's up. I mean, when I was talking about this one, I was thinking about prices from even 2 or 3 months ago where a number of uncirculated 9.0s or 90s were selling kind of close to this $200 range after shipping. But this one proves me wrong. And it further proves that I know nothing about the current environment. But this uncirculated 90, beautiful example, $250 in an auction on 43 bids plus $14.99 shipping. So apparently that one's going up and the rocket firing FET is going down. To me, if I'm going to spend the money, I would much rather have the rocket firing FET than this one. And the fact that this CAS 90 example sold for, gosh, about half the price. That's pretty crazy to me. That's pretty crazy. Now, admittedly, it's AFA versus CAS, but still, that's a really, really good value for that rocket firing FET relative to the prototype armor FET. And then next up is the VC 186 Boba Fett. This is the Return of the Jedi, example. No chest plate sensor on this one. It was an 8.5 on the modern scale. So this was the running change before the running change was made to add that chest plate sensor. But it is only an 8.5, and the price reflected that, $90 plus $10.85 shipping. So about $100 for that one. Higher grade examples will probably set you back closer to $150. They got up there for a while. I mean, I remember a CAS 95 example with no chest plate sensor that sold, I'm going on memory now, guys, but it was about 6 to 9 months ago, and it sold for quite a bit more. I want to say $225 to $250. So clearly that one's come down as well. Next up, Darth Malgus. This was the European release, VC96, and you can see it's got the warning label on the back there, and it also has a Forbidden Planet sticker. I would kill, as a side note, I would kill to have the Forbidden Planet in the U.S. I don't think we have that, at least where I live. We don't have the Forbidden Planet, but I see, all you guys in the UK and all the different options you get at Forbidden Planet and for pretty great prices relative to here in the U.S. It's got to be nice to have that. So anyway, this VC96 is the European release. It's got the 2 stickers on the front of the card back up top, covering up the U.S. warning labels, and then obviously the multi-language warnings on the back. But that one sold for £99, which is $125 US plus shipping. But that was a nice, clean example of that one. Next up was an AFA 8.5 Grand Moff Tarkin US card unpunched with the Darth Maul offer. And I think that my buddy, Retro Toy Kid, you got a great deal on mine. I had an AFA 90 example with 3-tier grading that I sold him for this exact same price, if memory serves. It was around this price. So he got a good deal. Shout out to Retro Toy Kid. I hope you're happy with that one because you got a great deal relative to this 8.5 grade. So this is the modern scale, not the 3-tier grading, and it was a lower grade, and it still sold for $300 plus $14 shipping. So I hope you enjoy it. I feel like it was a fair price for both of us there. Next up, this was a great deal. I can't believe this one went so cheap. This is VC 101, the original issue Shea Vizsla, US card, unpunched with the Darth Maul offer. It was an uncirculated 90 from UKG. Uncirculated 90. That is a great looking figure, and it sold for $137.50. To get an uncirculated 90 original issue Shea Vizsla for $137.50 plus $14 shipping. This was in the US, even though it was UKG graded. Somebody got an absolute bargain on that. That is a great price. And that's about where the reissue AFA graded is selling for. So somebody got a really good deal on that. I didn't see it. Otherwise, it would have been very tempting to bid on that because that's a beautiful card back. And there's something about having that original issue Shea Vizsla. And I personally love the offer stickers. I just think it's kind of cool. I wish that Hasbro would bring back the offer stickers. Somebody mentioned that in a video of mine. I think it would be really cool to bring back mailaways, or even if they wanted to advertise the HasLab. Advertise the HasLab for a small production run while the HasLab is active. That would be a really cool chase card that I think a lot of collectors would dig. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it would be really cool to bring back those offer stickers. Now I've got a few Ahsokas that sold, and they were all over the map. This was a CAS 85 Plus US released first issue Ahsoka, unpunched. Very nice example, 85 plus. That sold for $302.33. I mean, that's what they go for right now, ungraded. So that somebody got a really good deal on that one as well. Here was the reissue. This was graded AFA 9.0. This seller has one more still available. Two of them did sell for $140 plus $15 shipping. So that's $155 for the reissue versus $302.33 plus shipping for the original issue unpunched. I mean, that's a bargain of a deal relative to the reissue. And this reissue was an uncirculated 9.25. That one sold for $190. So, I mean, if you spend an extra, let's call it $125, and you get the original issue, and still in pretty high grade, 85 plus is nothing to scoff at for the original issue Ahsoka versus dropping $190 free shipping for the reissue. So, again, I can't make heads or tails of the market, but that's what it is. Next up was that Darth Vader Emperor's Wrath VC 115. In my opinion, and this is just my personal opinion, somebody overpaid for this. It sold for $154.26, but I think that they just didn't see the damage. You can see very clearly on the back of the card below the VC 115, there's a big crease there. And it's kind of hidden. And, who knows if they did some darkening of the photo there. It's very possible to hide the crease. You can barely see the crease around the hang tab on the front. But on the back, you can't hide it. You can see that crease very clearly. And to pay $154 plus $10 shipping, you got to really zoom in on these photos because, number one, it was a punched example, and it had that big crease. And I think that if you're patient in an auction, you might be able to find this one unpunched for not much more money. It's come back down a little bit. It got up into crazy numbers, like around $300, $350 even. But it's slowly working its way back down. And I would say $200 to $225 for a nice, clean, unpunched example of the Emperor's Wrath. I mean, he says perfect. It's not perfect. Stop lying. It's not perfect. It had a very obvious crease. And I expect eBay sellers to do better than that, in my opinion. So be careful out there. There's a lot of people just trying to pull one over on you. Next up, we've got the two HasLab Razor Crest pack-ins that I had on my What to Buy video, and they both sold for right around where I thought they would. This was Grogu with the Chrome Prom, and that one was unpunched. Really nice example. That one sold for $72.05 plus $565 shipping, and the same seller also had the Off-World Jawa Arvala 7 unpunched. That one sold for $86 plus $565 shipping. So those two have come down in price a lot, and pretty good buys on those, and they were kind of right around where I thought they would sell. This is another one where I can't make heads or tails of it. I've got a CAS 90 grade Hondo Anaka available for $85 shipped in the US, and I can't give it away. And this one was over in the UK. It was graded UKG 90%, so same grade as mine, same subscores as mine. That one sold for $98 plus shipping, which is 80 pounds. But, you know, I've got mine listed for $85 shipped in the US on Rogue 5 Toys, and nobody even looks at it. And this was the same grade, same subgrades by UKG, and it still sold for even higher than mine. So, again, I can't make heads or tails of the market, but that's what it sold for. Next up was that custom VC-177 that included the pin inside the CAS case. It was a CAS 90 Din Djarin. This is that Walmart exclusive, I believe. Yeah, the Walmart exclusive Din Djarin. And it had that little weird pin that looks like a cookie cutter to me. That one sold for $237.52 plus $10.85 shipping. So that was the final sales price on that. It wasn't an auction, 20 bids. Is it worth it? I guess. I don't know. It's kind of cool, I guess, to have that pin packed in. It's not something I would want, but it certainly is unique and very cool. Next up, this was a very high-grade Boba Fett Tatooine. This is that deluxe box. Not something I would buy, but it was graded 95 plus. 95 plus. Very, very high grade. I've never gotten a 95 plus for anything, vintage or vintage collection with CAS, but that was a very high grade. That one still only sold for $122.50 plus $15 shipping. So somebody got another really good buy on that one, if that's what you want. You know, to me, I wouldn't particularly want this, but the box art is really cool. I'll say that. You know, that kind of sticker there on the front, or that, you know, the packaging there, it's very reminiscent of some of the 20 backs from the Kenner days, where it showed the kit bash art, Boba Fett on the back of the card backs of some of those 20 backs. So it's a kind of a cool idea. I like the multi-language on that little, you know, kind of sunburst there. So it is really cool, I guess, but not something I'd want. But very high grade, 95 plus, $122.50 plus $15 shipping. So somebody got a good value there. This one I think looks really great in a graded case. This is one I don't have, but this is the Artillery Trooper VC-263. This is the first one I've seen of them sell. This seller had two of them. They both sold. They were both 9.25 uncirculated grading. Look how great that looks in the case, though. That is a beautiful looking figure and card back. I love the way that looks. I like how the artillery shells are kind of splayed out next to his head there, but I love the colors. Everything about it's really cool. Anyway, so that was a 9.25 uncirculated by AFA. He had two of them. They both sold for $120 plus $10.45 shipping. And then finally, we've got the SDCC. Was it SDCC? I can't remember, but they were yeah, the Death Star playset pack-ins for Salacious Crumb and the Mouse Droid. Now, there's been some graded examples that have sold for $1,000 a piece, and then you had these two that were sold together in an auction that were ungraded, and they sold for $1,000 for both of them. Now, admittedly, these two did appear to have some edge wear. They were not perfect, so you can see in the photos there's some very light edge wear to them. Not a lot, but, you know, down there at the bottom by the Visit StarWars.Hasbro, there's some edge wear. There's some edge wear by the Not for Individual Resale. So not perfect examples. You can just see some very light edge wear right there. So admittedly, they're not nearly as nice as graded examples that sold for double this price or more. But they did sell in Canada for 1,400 Canadian dollars on two bids, which is $1,037 US dollars plus another $100 shipping. So anyway, two more data points for two very hard to find SDCC playset pack-ins of Salacious Crumb and the Mouse Droid. But these are the lowest prices I've seen in a little while for these two. But admittedly, they weren't perfect. So a good, more budget-friendly way to add those to your holy grails for the modern vintage collection, you know, is to look for something like this where they're not perfect, they're in an auction, and you get both of them together. And you know, $1,000 is probably about as low as you're going to find for both of those together. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at the vintage collection. Some interesting sales prices, both high and low. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.